Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Today is October 9th, and this is another installment of our SIG CLI bi-weekly meetings. My name is Mate, and I'll be your host today. Before we jump to the main topics, a few announcements. A reminder that we will be hosting a SIG CLI 90-minute session during KubeCon in San Diego. I put the link to the schedule to our particular session in the agenda as well. Feel free to show up. We will be covering pretty much everything that people will want to discuss, and we have about 90 minutes overall. So I do hope that we will be able to address any concerns, questions, feedback, and everything as we go. Another important date is October 15th, which is next Tuesday, if I remember correctly, or something along that. Yeah, Tuesday. This is the date when all of the Kubernetes enhancements proposals should be tagged and merged, hopefully, which basically means this is an enhancements freeze. If you have any enhancements that are awaiting approval, let me know. I'll make sure to review them by the end of this week. I know that he managed to put together AP and enhancements for the events command. I know there's one with regards to a debug command. So these two, for sure, I'm going to be looking at later this week. I'll also probably just search for all of the enhancements that are having SIG CLI labels to be able to justify. So make sure that your PR has that label on, so it'll be easier for me to find them. I see that Sean added KubeCon Contributor Summit. Sean, want to talk about it, that one?
Sure. Yeah. So we just got approved a Contributor Summit workshop that is focused on kubectl development, and it's for 90 minutes, and it should be very hands-on. I was going to propose that. So this will hopefully lessen the steep learning curve for reviews and for contributions to kubectl, and maybe we can update the reviewers and approvers afterwards based on those who've contributed and maybe those who've gone through this training. Anyway, a suggestion that was just approved yesterday. Should be very hands-on.
I'll just add to that. So I think what you were saying, Sean, is that independent of this, we want to begin to update the reviewers and approvers.
Correct.
Really to reflect who's been actively contributing and maintaining. This is something that we've been planning to do for a while, and we're always kind of like, well, we're about to move all the code out, and that seems like the perfect time to do it. But that's effort has dragged on for years now. So just calling it and saying, you know what, actually, it's time to just do it now. And it doesn't matter if we're going to move the code out tomorrow. It's time. And as we're doing that, thinking more holistically about how we grow the community of contributors and make sure that we're clear about, one, what the kind of expectations are to become reviewers, becoming approvers, these sorts of things. And also how we can make sure that we're providing good opportunities for people to reach those, right, in the form of clear, concrete tasks that are not, so what Sean's talking about is not like, this is your first contribution to Kubernetes, like sort of tasks, right, which while important, are much harder for us to really sustain and grow contributors from, and what we really are able to grow contributors from is meaty, concrete pieces that are things that are on our roadmap and we want to see done, right? And so, Sean, one thing we might want to do there is, I know you were planning on doing, as part of that, a deep dive into maybe different pieces to help folks maybe make a leap from like the simplest sort of problems folks can solve to maybe more meaty chunks. I think that was part of one thing you wanted to accomplish. And it might be useful to put together like a form, like a, what do you call them? Things where people vote. I forget what they're called. But put together a forum where there's a couple of options for things you could talk about, because I know you have things that you think are particularly challenging about learning in the system, but I suspect that there are
different perspectives on that.
Yeah, different people have run into different things, and so maybe allowing people, one, to suggest things, and then two, putting down your own suggestions, and then maybe we pick the top 3 a week ahead of time and do that.
Sure, and I hope to put together some code labs so that we can, again, to get back to this being hands-on and actually to dive pretty deep into, the concepts which are very common across all of the subcommands, and actually make this, make it very as detailed as possible. So any suggestions that you guys have for that would really be useful.
Who's headed to the contributor summit, by the way?
Right, I was just going to ask, this is Sally. I'm not, but will this be recorded?
Yes, it definitely will be.
Okay, I wasn't sure about the workshop.
And so even if you're not going to the workshop, you can vote on things you'd like to see covered there. And then that way we'll still cover it. Thanks, Allie.
Yeah, and pretty much the 3 of us will be there. And I'm pretty sure that more people, the core developers of kubectl. So it is also a good place for getting your PRs reviewed. I know that there will be some questions. I'm pretty sure that one of the, hopefully not the top voted, but there will be some that will want to see how we review code. I'm pretty sure that as we have time, we will try to get some reviews through and land some PRs. Not sure what the time frame, how these will land for 117. I can't remember the release dates off the top of my head, but still we can get them through the reviews period at least. Okay.
Depending on how it goes, we can probably do this again at a future KubeCon or something like that.
Exactly. Okay, let's move on to the main topics in that case. And the first one is kubectl debug, KEP that I mentioned before. Is the author of the KEP over here? I'm not sure. Lee. I don't see Lee in the list of people. Is there anyone else who can talk about the kubectl debug proposal? Oh, he mentioned that it will be for the next meeting. Okay, perfect. I'm gonna move that one in that case over to the next one. I missed that bit. We still have the topic that was postponed from some time ago with regards to kubeconfig, that D directory. Do we have the person that put it over here? Okay, hearing none. I think by that time, I'm gonna entirely cross it out. If the person appears at all, we'll get a chance to cover this one. Okay, and if that's the case, I think I can pass over to Nick to talk about Koei Cask proposal.
That issue looks like it's a year old, and the PR looks pretty old as well. July. Oh, but it looks like it was just reviewed 13 days ago. That thing, we should, yeah. Has the person who wrote this reached out, by the way?
I haven't heard.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Nick, all the way to you.
Okay, you mind if I grab the screen?
Sure. Let me stop the sharing.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. So I was going to step through a quick proposal. I've mentioned a few times in the past meetings very briefly. I can flesh out a little bit more now. I'll warn you in advance that the demos are still a little flaky, so bear with me. But the thought process here is that you probably mostly are familiar with CUI as a project, but just to get us all on the same page, we've been working on a platform for enhancing CLI experience with graphics. And the basic idea is that we thought we could employ in this discussion for today is a mode that I think I may have done with previously is the pop-up mode. So we can, from a terminal, sort of as visualized on the screenshot on the right here, from a terminal you can type a command and then a window pops up and services that command with some graphics, such as you're seeing here. And so the thought is that we can sort of hide CUI behind a crew-like facade, maybe even crew itself, so that users are just installing crew plugins. And under the covers, when they then go on to execute kubectl or whatever, a window will pop up for those particular plugins that happen to be UI-based plugins. So that's the basic idea, that to make crew the centerpiece, and CUI just happens to be a vehicle for delivering UI plugins, UI-based plugins. So the center of the basic idea, the reason why this is sort of not trivial but not hard, is that each window that pops up in the CUI world is hosted by an Electron application. And behind that is Chrome and Node.js. It's all pretty big. And hopefully we can avoid having each plugin hosting its own 200 megabyte Chromium instance, both in terms of memory and disk footprint. And so the proposal is that we can offer Cask, I'm just nicknaming it that for now, Cask with a K, to continue the homebrew analogs with the capital the C Cask in the homebrew world. So Cask with a K in the crew world would be this mediator. It would then acquire the base Electron assets. I'm calling that CUI base. It would proxy to CUI for any of the CUI-based plugin management. So CUI has plugins itself, which can then be used to service kubectl graphics. And it'll also generate all the kubectl delegates necessary so that kubectl X works. So that's the basic shape of the proposal. It's sort of an operation, the way we're thinking of it, and this is just two possible variants. I'm sure there's a dozen more. But the simplest one would be we could deliver Cask via crew. And then from there on, you can then use kubectl Cask to provision the UI components. And then, as I said, you get the delegates behind the scenes for free. And then you can do whatever Vutilization. I picked Vutilization, which was a crew plugin that I prototyped in this landscape. And then you get a window popping up. A slight variant to that would be if we felt comfortable enough hosting Cask as a sort of a first-class part of the crew world, just as Cask with the C is a first-class part of the homebrew world, we could sort of save a step, and it would just be crew Cask install. But that's sort of the same basic principle. Some screenshots, and I can show you live stuff in a second as well. But the idea here is that what I'm going to show is a sequence of slides where the title of each slide is the command I type in my terminal, and then the graphics is the window that pops up that services that request. And so if I'm installing a plugin, like here I said, Cask install this Vutilization plugin that I prototyped this morning, you'll get back the result of an installation is the set of commands that plugin hosts. So I was just trying to basically mimic what the Vutilization plugin did for crew. And they have cluster and node, for example, visualizations. They have a third one, namespace, that I didn't implement. So I can do a Cask list or a crew Cask list, depending on how we want to play this. That will pop up a window in this case for the lists, the plugin that I've installed. And then when I go to kubectl utilization nodes, which is now using that delegate that was generated, a window will pop up with some sort of graphics. Now I realize that this is not the most compelling example because it's just a table, but actually those links, the 10.73 are actually links that you can click on and navigate in a browser-like way using all the CUI infrastructure. And the same thing for the cluster utilization that this command has. So that's the basic idea. And so just to show you a basic sense of it, this is sort of the basic kind of landscape we're shooting for, that I can issue a set of commands that I can ask for the commands offered by a plugin and so on. So that's the sort of basically what we're shooting for. Where the rough edge comes, and I hadn't quite got at the point this morning where I was able to get the utilization plugin working in this world. So I'll just to show you it live here, but this is now running in a kubectl and a CUI terminal, but the same UI essentially holds. Here's CUI running in its full instance, but it can also run in a pop-up mode like you were seeing for these windows over here. But each of these is a link. I click on it. In this case, this particular client's not running with the Monaco editor component, so you get a raw view. But if we were running with the editor component, you would get a YAML, a Monaco editor, a nice Monaco editor decoration. And so that's sort of the basic idea of how we were thinking things could, this architecture could play out. Each one of these commands can also be hosted in a full CUI environment, but from the crew delivery angle, that aspect of CUI would be kind of hidden. That we don't necessarily want to foist a whole new terminal on every single kubectl user just to get the benefits of graphical assist. So we can use crew plus this cask kind of infrastructure to deliver these kind of graphical enhancements, I think in a way that doesn't force people to adopt a whole new terminal. So that's the basic shape of the proposal. In terms of status, there's some repos you can look at. Of course, the CUI repo, I'm sort of ranked the maturity of all these aspects of the proposal. CUI, I think, is very far along. It's actually being used in production code for products that we're shipping today. The cask is a few weeks old, so it's definitely prototype code, but this is Go code that it does everything that I said it did. It downloads CUI base, it delegates a plugin lifecycle management, and that repo is available. And we have a couple plugins, of course, the kubectl enhancements plugins that you've all seen in previous demos. Those are super solid and the basis for products. We have some tech enhancements, the utilization plugin. We continue to enhance the plugin landscape as we go. So no, I'll leave it from there. There's a bunch of ways, a bunch of open questions for this, but I wanted to get the basic shape of the proposal out there for discussion. Any thoughts?
My first question is probably the most obvious one. How the Electron dependencies does it require, or given different plugins, each using different level of Electron? Mm-hmm. Not sure, I'm not familiar with Electron and how the version SKU works there. But given this approach, and I'm installing one plugin which relies on an older version of Electron, does mean I'm going to get that version upon first installment, or cask comes in with a pre-built version of Electron and requires every single plugin to satisfy that, or Electron does not have that many differences between version SKUs, and we have a lot of flexibility in that regards.
Yep. Yeah, thanks much. That's definitely the first question. Good first question. So CUI itself has a nice core API that insulates users from most of the aspects of Electron. So for example, if you just want to generate some tables, or if you want to make a bespoke visualization, then you don't need to be concerned with the details of Electron. You're just writing a web app at that point. So I think for the most part, we're fairly well insulated from Electron to Electron kind of dependencies. But of course, there will be variances if somebody's coded to the CUI v5 API and or the CUI v6 API, there'll be divergences. Under the covers, today the way we're solving that in this prototype is we're relying on NPM to resolve those, and so NPM allows for overlapping, nested dependencies. So I think we'll be able to solve that pretty well. So at this point, a plugin specifies it needs CUI core base version 5, for example, and that will be pulled in as part of the plugin installation process. So I think that we'll have a pretty good handle on that. The main issue there is how to deal with the NPM issues, because NPM, of course, is something we can't assume that every random kubectl developer has on the platform. And I think we can address that using the notion of bundled dependencies in the NPM world. So we can, when we're bundling up and shipping a plugin to the registry, we can bundle the dependence requirements. And that would, I think, allow us to then provision and download these bundles in a way that still it benefits from everything we can get from Node.js and NPM, but it doesn't mandate that they have NPM installed on the platform just to provision the kubectl plugin. But yeah, there's definitely some open questions here. I think that we can address these pretty well, but definitely some open questions for us to continue to explore.
I mean, starting with the simplest approach and eventually addressing the upgrade paths as we go will be the best option to start with. It's pointless to try to come up with some super complicated solution to a problem that we don't have yet.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think the main point of this, I think, is we've discovered is with CUI adoption generally is that some people are happy to adopt new tools and most people aren't. Or they're happy to adopt the parts of tools that help them and they don't want to adopt the parts of tools that don't. And so a replacement terminal is something that some people are happy to accept and some people will need to accept if they're running in a browser context, for example. But in a local context, no. So I'm hoping that we can still deliver all the benefits of UI enhancements to the Kubernetes world without having to force them to accept a new terminal or even a new installation framework. I'm hoping we can piggyback on Crew for the installation part, and we just have behind the scenes popping up windows. So that's the main goal here. But yeah, there's definitely dependence issues to work through.
Can you again explain what role Crew should play there? Because to me it appears that Cask has his own dependency rules and issues to work out. I'm a bit confused what role Crew should play there.
Yeah, thanks for this. Yeah, I think as I was stepping through on the variants, you're absolutely right that on the left hand, the variant 1, there's except for provisioning Cask itself, there's no need for Crew beyond step 1, a variant 1. But I think variant 2 might be a way where we can. I'm perfectly happy for Cask to be and CUI to be completely behind the scenes as far as user consumption is concerned. So just from a standpoint of sort of trying to not pollute the world with more tools and more variants, I thought variant 2 might have a little better of a UX, so that from a publicity standpoint, we can now, assuming variant 2 can go forward, we can advertise that there is now a way for developing and consuming UI-oriented plugins, and without having to worry about having to document or publicize or explain a whole new set of tooling. But this is, I think, it's more of an experience issue and not a technical one.
But so as far as I understand, both variant 1 and variant 2 both involve a new tool, which is Cask. So there would be a new tool anyway. So
behind the scenes, yeah. I could even imagine a variant 3 where if a plugin registers as a Cask-like plugin, then Crew can can recognize that and behind the scenes can delegate to the Cask Go library for provisioning that particular plugin. So that I think that this is more of an experience discussion than a technical one, because I think these are all sort of gloss issues from a technician standpoint. But so there's something attractive to me about what I've now done is variant 3, I guess, in live edit mode here, where we're offering people an opportunity to develop and consume a new class of plugins, but we don't have to, at least from a consumption perspective, they don't have to even consider about what the origin of this particular plugin is, what the nature of the plugin is. It's just a crew plugin. To me, there's something nice and attractive about that. It just, in terms of not polluting the world and not increasing the complexity of how plugins are consumed. But yeah, it's an experience issue for sure.
Does anyone else have any questions to Nick?
This is installing CUI specific plugins. Has there been any thought about making CUI natively extensible for binary plugins? Like, and what I'm thinking here, right, is CUI is my understanding is CUI takes like the output of kube control or the CLI and renders it, and maybe potentially runs additional commands to get more information about the output if needed. And is it everything I said is correct so far, right?
So far so good, yes.
Okay. And I can imagine someone wanting to extend the functionality of CUI by displaying certain information, right? But maybe they don't care about Electron or any of that. Like, they know how to get the information just from a CLI running, like wrapping client Go.
Yeah.
Is there like a standard format that CUI takes as input, and then they can like hook in their just pure CLI Go program?
Yep. Yeah. So that exists today. Yeah. So in fact, that's how we're processing kubectl and OpenOC output and the IBM Cloud CLI. They all emit tables of roughly similar nature, and CUI can digest them all. The challenges there are what CUI, in order to offer navigational assist, CUI has to have some ontological understanding of the nature of the resources and the connection between resources. So when I do I have to understand the grammatical, the phrase structure, and the ontology of the underlying resources. So if I do a kubectl get pods, I would like to be able to click on one of those rows and see the details of that pod. How do I know that such a transition is possible and what the phrase structure of that transition is going to be? So I think there's beyond, so it ended up being more than an issue of just parsing ASCII tables. The deeper issue is how we can get a deeper understanding of navigation and of drill down, things like that. So there's definitely some challenges there that we haven't yet figured out how to solve.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah, that makes, like, some of these problems are very difficult, and they're actually cut across a number of different areas, like the graph, object graph, if you will, and references between objects would be useful for solving problems as like automatic garbage collection of config maps and secrets, right, for instance, or sequencing of applying objects where maybe as an optimization you want to apply the things that are referenced before the objects that reference them, right? Like, the system should be resilient to it, but if you could sequence them automatically, that might be great, right? Or like tearing down. So these sorts of things, that graph information would probably be useful for CUI as well. I think there's a plan to develop it at some point, but it might be 12 months off. So maybe at that point in time would be good to figure out how we can make sure that however that problem is solved, it's something you can leverage.
Yeah, I think it's a good general approach that if a plugin is whose only desire is to emit a table, for example, so the view utilization plugin is emitting tables, and it'd be great if we could architect it out so that you get the table for free, and you do in CUI, but in addition that you get some sort of navigational assist from it. So I think that's one angle that we can clearly, I think, find a way to transparently wrap tabular output into the CUI world. I guess a deeper question, I guess, maybe behind this for the CUI world is, what are the nature of plugins that we're trying to facilitate? If it's emitting tables, that's one thing, or is the job to enrich the experience in some more graphical or holistic way? And if by writing new kinds of views, for example, or like a new bespoke visualization, like graph visualization or a nice tree table, are those the ways we want to enhance the output? Or is it more a question of just assembling and collating data, like the visualization plugin does, into a table? And I think those are both useful. And I think what you're pointing out, Phil, is that, yeah, for the first class, the ones that are doing the assembling and collating, it'd be great if we could have some automated path for turning those into graphical assist.
Yep, that was it. That's a great summary. Thank you.
Yeah, good feedback. Thank you.
Just a quick comment. It'd be if you guys are able to get to KubeCon, it'd be really cool to see you guys face to face and just talk in person if that's possible.
Yes, I just got approval just this morning, so I'll be there.
Right on. Good to see you.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Good feedback. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Moving on to the next topic, Phil, standardized CLI IO format for config.
Yeah, awesome. So something I've been thinking about lately is Customize currently just operates on a directory of configuration, and then writes it to standard out. And it would be, maybe someone can mute.
I just did.
Okay, great. Okay, so Customize writes to standard out, and it would be nice if it could write back to the files themselves, perhaps, or write to a new directory maintaining the original structure. So you could check in the output to Git or something like that and have it look kind of like the input and do diffs that are meaningful. And so that means we need some way of annotating resources with like a relative path to where they should be written back out. And customized plugins right now take a list of resources and some configuration for those resources as kind of a way to express a function to transform them, right? So there's a configuration for the function itself. There's the resource list that the function is transforming, and then there's the output in the error. And the folks in API Machinery and KubeBuilder and MetaController are actually looking at a similar problem space, right, in a different context. Over there, they're talking about how do we transform resources in the, as in the context of a controller, right? But the sort of interface of needing to provide a collection of resources, a configuration for how to transform them, and then read that resources out with kind of a status code is the same in both contexts. And so maybe being able to standardize one on a way of describing where to write configuration back to a file, so we can round trip through Customize, and two, a standard way to describe a transfer input and output for the transformation of a set of resources, so that we just have like a way and don't have to reinvent this. Like KubeBuilder doesn't have to reinvent their own description, and Customize doesn't have to reinvent its own description. Are two things I'm thinking about. I imagine so there would be no actual action required here besides just putting together a KEP as guidance for, future civilizations who don't want to reinvent this. Thoughts?
I think I need to read the KEP. Do you have any kind of docs already started on the topic?
No.
Okay.
Just throwing it out there before I start the doc.
I'm just I'm just trying to think because I think we talked about something similar. I'm not sure if that was here or in the Slack. But in that case, I think it'll be best to wait for the cap and proceed with the discussion over there. But overall, yeah, that totally makes sense.
Maybe just a heads up that probably cap is coming. All right, that's all I got.
Thanks, Phil. Does anyone else have any questions to Phil? Okay, cool. Himanshu, I remember you had the kubectl events enhancements. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, so in the last meeting we discussed about adding a separate command for events, right? So for that I created this cap. I think I provided a minimum information in there, but feel free to review it and suggest if more information is needed, because this is my first cap, so maybe I missed few points there. So what I did, like I provided a high level info, like why we are providing a separate command for events. So that's it. And I'll start working on it also soon. So.
Does anyone have any questions with regards to this enhancements? I totally encourage everyone to check it out. I think it is something that we would like to see being implemented in the near future. The current tooling that we have around events is rather poor, I would say, is the most gentle way to saying that it's not good.
So okay. I have a question related to the PR we discussed in the last meeting. So are we going to merge that PR, or we are waiting for this command to be implemented first? Or? That PR was like sorting the events of, like providing a default sort order basically for the events.
I haven't got to the PR to the other PR. Sorry. I'll try to. You did? Yeah.
Yeah, I have context on this. So I believe my takeaway from the last discussion 2 weeks ago was that we are not going to merge the PR to provide a sort order for events, default sort order for the events, and instead we will move forward with a separate command that is just for displaying events, which I think is what this cap was about, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, and one note on the cap, it looks like the formatting with the backticks might be off for the MD. It's rendering kind of weird.
Okay, I'll check it out. Okay, cool.
Okay, could you add, I just took a quick look at the PR. Would you mind adding examples? Like you have examples of the Git events piece under motivation.
In the cap you're saying?
Yeah, in the cap.
Yeah, I added in the cap like a couple of examples.
Do you have examples for the new command?
No, but I can do that. I can modify the cap for that.
Okay, yeah, just maybe put in the cap, like here's how the new command will work. Here's how it'll be called. Here's its output. Here's its flags.
Okay.
Thanks.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Himanshu. I think that's pretty much all of our main topics. And with that, we can move to the stand-ups. I see Crew and kubectl independence. Crew, Cornelius, go ahead.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, we've released the Crew version 0.3 and 0.31 shortly after, which has been the first release since about a year or so. And one big change there was that we moved away from Google Cloud Storage to GitHub releases. So we can now kind of track how many downloads we get for Crew, and also get a bit of an estimate on how big our user basis is. And so we can't say give exact numbers. So, but it's around 1K downloads since then. So maybe 800, maybe 2,000. It's roughly that magnitude. And one other new invention was that Ahmed added a bot to automatically approve version bumps, which saves us a lot of time reviewing tedious manifest improvements where just the version number changes, and works great so far.
Okay, thanks. And Sean with the kubectl independence.
So as I've mentioned before, we've been in this position for a little while now. There's 3 commands that were kubectl subcommands that we are trying to move out of kubectl or Kubernetes core. We did make some progress on the convert in that where during the architecture code organization meeting, we were able to get the others who were running the meeting to agree to allow the convert functionality to be moved to a standalone binary. So this is actually a big win because it had looked like there were some parts of the architecture committee who were going to hold out for us creating an entire new repo for internal versions, and it sounded like it was going to be a lot of work that was going to block us. But it seems now we can create this standalone binary for the convert functionality. If you rename it, I think it can be used as a plugin as well. Just, you know, it's going to be a binary, and that binary could also be a plugin depending on the naming. And so anyway, I think we've made some progress there. There's a PR out for the kubectl get, basically rewriting the tests. That's been on the table. I've been going back and forth with Jordan for a few weeks now, and that still requires work. And then I don't know of any work on the final command, the auth reconcile, that we're going to get completed with this release. To be honest, it sounds like Jordan isn't going to be able to finish this release, but I think we can make progress on the other 2, and that's where we stand. Any questions?
I think the auth reconcile, if it still will be an issue, we can talk in depth during KubeCon. Not sure if Jordan is heading over to San Diego, but it will be a good place to push this through.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Sean. Does anyone have any other topics that I want to bring up before I close the meeting? Okay, hearing none. Thank you very much all for your time, and see you in 2 weeks. Bye.